you
Yeah,
can't be precise.
we're still relatively on track. We're just tracking a lot of supply chain challenges, some of the shoring pieces and other items that we need to procure. There's a lot of different options that we're evaluating as far as timing and everything. So, yeah, we're on as track as we were hoping to be. I'll put it that way.
Alderman Kavieski.
Had some calls inquiring the shoring of that back wall. Everything come together okay with that?
Yeah, that was put in place as we started to take the structures down with a lot of dialogue with the building owner there. There was an awareness of how that was all, how the structure was prior to demo, and so we wanted to make sure that it was done appropriately, which it is, and we're working through what a good permanent solution to that is. Yeah. So that is shoring that can stay in place for years if needed. Not that that's the intention, but we didn't want to just shore it up with 2x4s, right? We've got appropriate shoring put in place.
Duct tape and super glue, yeah.
Any further questions for either the developer or the equity partner group that's putting this together? Alderman Kavieski.
Pre-sales going well? I'm just kidding.
Well, thank you very much for coming. I think it's important that council keeps informed as well as the community does as well. I think the questions have been, it happened and then there's nothing.
I know.
And so that's something now that at least we appreciate that update so the community can get that information. Thank you.
And there is screening that was put up on the fencing
saw it.
today that was also a supply chain challenge,
Yeah.
getting screening. So we wanted to get that up about a month ago, and that got
Well, thank you for not putting the multiple color one that you said you received when you received several. Yeah. So thank you. It looks better. Mr. Scream, anything to add? Are you good? You're good? Okay. Thank you. Any further comments? I don't have any blue cards. Any further comments from the audience? With no blue cards in hand, we're going to move on to our committee reports. We're going to start off with Public Services. Consider act on Resolution 23-R3100, accepting dedication of right-of-way and pedestrian paths in Olympia Fields development. Are you going to take that one?
Yeah, sure.
1
So,
minute, 1 minute,
huh?
1 minute.
No, 20 seconds. So as I explained to the committee, this is being generated by Landmark Credit Union. Our agreement with the developer had us already accepting dedication by law of the right-of-ways and the paths. And now you're going to do a resolution saying you're doing it again. And tomorrow I'm going to sign an affidavit saying that we already did it twice. That's it.
Questions or comments from council? Like to entertain a motion, please?
So moved,
Ellis.
Second, Kavieski.
Any further comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Motion's carried.
On to our next item, under new business, consider act on resolution 23-R3099, approving seasonal commercial boat rental dock use permit and fee. Mr. Hepner.
Good evening. This topic goes back to the summer of 2020, when everybody stayed home and everybody used pontoon boats on LaBelle. So back then, our Lake Access Task Force was charged with a number of things, and the last task we talked about was this topic. So ultimately, there's a number of people that have private use of our public docks to load, unload, rent pontoon boats. And it's caused a few issues. Congestion is the number one thing with the launch and holding up spaces. Again, using public space that we've paid for through the city fees and money for private business. So we've walked through this, and I'll give you a little more details on it. But we have contacted the Wisconsin DNR and asked if this kind of fee could be used. They saw no problem with it. We've talked to the companies who most frequently do this, and they've been very cooperative. Things we're going to add to this that is included in your permit application, this would be for both Lac LaBelle and Fowler Lake for private use of the public docks. It's for motorized watercraft rentals only. You would need 1 permit per boat. You could have up to 5 permits per business on a seasonal basis. So we would require their WS number. And one thing we also included that came from the Park and Rec Board suggestion was, just in case the boat goes out of commission, so mechanical or they sell it or something, we could transfer that permit. Normally, it's not going to be transferable from boat to boat each weekend, but if something goes out of order, we can certainly deal with that. The fee would be $350 per boat per season. Season runs from May 1st through September 30th. 2 exceptions, this would not include the 2 boats that you'll follow our next agenda item, which is holding boats permanently or seasonally at the dock. So that's not, those are exempted because they'll be paying a different fee. And we also have what we call a corporate boat launch fee, which is really intended for business who uses for demonstrations or mechanical fixing or testing maintenance purposes. That's a separate fee. They pay $220 for the season, or maybe like a Somerset who does piers and shore stations. So this has nothing to do with that, but it's really if you're renting a private boat and you're using our public space to load and unload and take up space, that's what we're looking at. So it also will include their launch fee, so hopefully it expedites the launch a little bit as well. Those, I believe, are the highlights, but I know Jennifer and Matt were part of the discussion, so if you have anything else you want to add to it, otherwise I'm happy to answer any questions.
Alderman Shellpepper.
How many companies do we think this is going to apply to?
Well, it'll apply to anybody that does this, but there's
Right.
been 4 main companies that have done this.
So we think there's only 4 commercial boat operators using our public launches right now.
There's for sure 4, possibly a few lesser needs.
What about like the guys that are doing the carp boats and using, they're doing guides at night? I mean, they're parking at the piers, I gotta think still. Is it gonna apply to any commercial businesses that are operating and using those piers?
If they're using the piers for a rental purpose. But if you're
What about like, if you're like a guide? Because these guys are like guides, I would
like a
think.
fishing guide, you're
Yeah, I
saying?
think they're coming, they're probably parking there. People are gonna load onto their boat.
They are, yes, I guess if they're taking up space there and gonna wait
Yeah.
for people to come,
How
yes,
are
if they're
we-
just hopping in their boat and launching and going,
Then
that's not
it's-
gonna be
Okay.
part of it.
How are we enforcing it? Like,
Well,
so
we're-
is it gonna be a sticker or something?
Yes, we'll have a permit that they'll go with their boat. So our staff will be there to see it, but the nice thing is we're gonna try and do this proactively. So we'll send this out just like we do that commercial boat piece where the testing ahead of time, and we'll get all this listed. So the main companies will be part of it. We'll have that already done. It might be somebody new that shows up that doesn't know about it. We'll try and educate people as best we can, but it probably comes down to 10 to 15 boats in a season.
That
So
will-
it's not a
okay.
substantial, it's not hundreds and hundreds of boats, but
Yeah.
but repeat. So the one boat could be there 20 to 30 times in a season.
Right. Well, and this kind of links in, I think, to some of the safety issues we had on the lake. Over the past summer, we had 2 fatalities on the lake. How does this program boost safety? Does it boost safety in any way?
I guess I'm not going to say that's going to increase safety necessarily.
I mean, because we're asking them to comply with certain rules, right? By allowing them to basically get this permit.
Correct. They have to follow rules of watercraft use on a lake like anybody else would.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's a good thing. I think we should be kind of bringing some more control of this in general. I mean, I kind of have concerns with what happened I mean, we still haven't really gotten any information as to what happened last summer, and I had asked for that multiple times. So it'd really be nice to get a succinct narrative on, what happened last summer with the 2 fatalities on perfect summer days and a warm, non-weather event days. So it'd be great to get some, so we can understand some of the lessons learned and how we can apply them. So, and then my other question is, do we have commercial boat rentals currently operating out of private residences near the boat launch right now? And how are those businesses going to comply with this as well? Have they been notified? Are they
Correct, that's
currently
one of the-
following the rules?
Yeah, that's one of the 4 businesses involved.
Yeah,
So they store boats in a different location, but then they come to our public docks to use them? Because they can't run the private business out of their own home?
but isn't that happening? It seems to be that's happening,
No,
right?
they come and use the docks.
But they're storing their boats.
They can store their boats anywhere they want, really, on the lake. Mhm. This would also apply, we've had the Duffy boat on Fowler. So if they hold that boat at a private residence, but if they come and load up on the public dock at Fowler, they would have to do the permit. So, simple as that.
Yeah, well, I've had quite a few complaints from people living over there with that operation in particular, and I'm still not convinced they're following all applicable rules.
Alderman Rozak.
Chaz, those are great points. We addressed a lot of those points at the Park and Rec Board. Our goal, and some of those folks renting boats privately essentially are known quantities and are understanding that this is happening. Couple things we want to do is raise some, kind of guaranteed revenue at $350 per boat. If there's 15 boats that are registered, it's about $5,200, $5,300 a year. Kind of guaranteed money in the door right away. A good season, bad season, that's good. It speeds up, like Craig said, it should speed up the process, which I think will add to some safety. The other thing that right now what we're not doing is we don't have to confirm. People can rent boats on the lake commercially without confirming that they have all permits, they've got a city license, a state license, and insurance. So right now, we don't know. So what this, I think, will allow us to do, I believe, and this is in its infancy, right? This is gonna be our first year trying this, so there might be some growing pains. But once they're renting a commercial boat on the lake, we'll be able to regulate them a little better and know that they've at least got insurance. They've at least complying with the rules that we've checked on them. They've got a business license. And maybe we want to do more next year. Maybe we want to do a little less, I think it's a good start. Your questions are spot on, though. We talked about a lot of those at the Park and Rec Board. And I think this is a good start, and it very well could be amended next year, up or down. Actually, I think there were 3 people that were renting boats that came to the meeting, and they were like, $350 is good. Like, okay. And I'm like, oh, shoot, we should have gone higher.
Alderman Kavieski.
So the point of safety, I think, is one that was obviously a big point of discussion last summer, and hopefully is not another big point of discussion this coming summer. Ultimately, that is a personal responsibility issue associated with those who either rent the boat. I think all of the operators go through safety of operation and things of that nature, whether you are renting a boat or have your boat. The message would be personal responsibility associated with safe operation of the boat and the passengers on the boat. That should trump all in regards to operating a business and having those boats go from a private pier to a public pier and paying the commercial fee for that and operating. I have a lot of friends on the lake too, and I think there's a few of them that probably make a few extra bucks renting slips to those who are enjoying the lake. I don't think we want to go and necessarily get into that. And I don't think what they're doing in regards to having their boat on a private slip and then moving it over to a public pier to allow those individuals to rent that boat isn't a violation associated with operating a business out of a private residence, because they're not. They're using the public slip. But those are all, again, valid things to address. I've heard of them as well, and it's not going on deaf ears.
Any further
Yeah,
questions?
well, I don't think the concern is whether they're going from private to public. I think the concern is how many motorized boats are you allowed to have per square footage of frontage? And are there too many boats parked in that specific location based on the frontage they have on the water? So,
Yeah, and
and then regarding the personal responsibility issue, I agree, but, when we start encouraging commercial use on the lake, it's great, we want to have the tourism here, but we got to realize that, personal responsibility, if it's not being taken, can impact the safety of others who are using the lake. And that's what my concern is, not if somebody's making decisions that, impact them and somehow hurt themselves. It's, how does it impact, my kids that are on the lake or, constituents who are on the lake? So that's where my concern is at.
Alderman Altman-Cloth.
To what Chaz said about the number of boats allowed on the lake, we do regulate that, correct? Didn't we talk about that
that's
in the last meeting?
actually a DNR.
Right.
Or the
rule.
DNR?
And so pier length, size, all that, number of boats per property, that's all DNR
No, no, I don't mean like a private resident. I mean, we have no say on that, but like we have a say on how many boats come through.
Number of live.
Oh, yes,
45.
so that's the net 40 number?
Yes.
But that's, so Chaz, I think is talking about though, the number
Right.
of boats on a private.
Yeah, like how much, and that's dictated by the state as well. I mean, that's not a city ordinance.
Right, we hold it, we call it net 40. So it's basically the capacity, the number of boats can get launched at one, not at one time, but
One day.
be out at one time on the lake. And once people come off, then the next can come on, but can't do more than 40. So it's kind of a balancing act between those that live on the lake and those that come for day uses.
Any further
approve as
questions or
presented.
comments?
Second, Altman Cloth.
Any further comments? Call roll, please.
You get control of this? Jeez.
You were speedy on that one.
Oh, what did you?
Call roll, please. Did you get both who?
Yes. you did.
Okay.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
On to our next item, consider act on approving the pontoon boat docking lease, Buddy's Boat Rental, RNS Hospitality.
So we had a 3-year agreement which expired after this season. And so for the first time, we actually sent this out for an RFP. I like the sound of that, right? And we received 2 proposals, one from John Sutner, which is Buddy's Boat Rental, and one from Stefan von Seelitz, which is Golden Boat Rentals. His is on Okachi. What we asked for, it used to be on a percentage basis, but we asked for a flat fee. And we asked for a minimum of $4,000, and they could add anything they wanted to onto it. So Buddy's Boat Rental came in at $7,000 on an annual rental basis, and Golden Boat Rentals was $7,100, within $100 each. Tinus Marine came in 2 days later and said they were interested, but they did not submit a proposal. So there's definitely interest. This is for the 2 docking spots at the same LaBelle dock, but it's kind of an unused area. So we discussed this at the Parks and Rec Board. Both proposal or providers were there. They answered some questions from the board. I wouldn't say it was a formal interview, but there were some good questions asked. And at the end of the day, the Parks and Rec Board voted 6-1 to approve going with Buddy's Boat Rental, John Sutner. I think based on experience, he's been doing this for about 7 years, and we're familiar with his operation, and we've had good success. So that's why they voted that and moved it on to the Common Council for their consideration and approval. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, but it's a 2-year agreement with a possible mutual extension of 1 year. And we also have a clause as we go through the boat launch project redesign that they understand that it's possible the season gets slightly shortened or moved or whatever, but they're very good with it. The agreement that Stan and I looked at is also attached, and if approved tonight, we'll send it off to Mr. Sutner for his signature.
Questions or comments? Alderman Kavieski.
I attended that Park and Rec meeting, and it was a good exchange. One of the things that I think is notable that was a difference between the two was John Sutner had a inclusion of a watercraft that could be basically a chase boat for safety reasons. The other didn't have that, but said they could provide it, but it's something that has been standard procedure for him, and also helped in the situation last summer, as well as for those operators that may have had issues with operating a boat in between. So I think some of those soft variances between the two, outside of the $100, shows a longer-term knowledge of who uses and how they use that area, so.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
And another safety thing that Sutner does that the other company did not do is Sutner does not allow pull-behinds, tubes on his boats. And then, my big comment that I made on the Park and Rec was after last summer, knowing that Buddy's was not, none of his rentals were involved in the drownings, what he did do to help out Western Lakes, and just to have some consistency. We just kind of don't need anything too new next year.
Alderman Mulder.
So the chase boat, that's another boat that's on site that will always be,
It's actually a jet ski or a personal watercraft.
Right.
And it's spelled out in the language that you can't use it for personal use. It's totally there only for emergency use, which isn't just for his boats, as Lou pointed out. He has come out if somebody stalled or ran out of gas or whatever the situation, emergency, he will use it or his staff will use it to come out. So
Okay.
we store it right there. It fits nice in the corner, but it's not for him to take out wheeling and dealing on the lake every weekend.
Any other questions or comments? Alderman Shellpepper.
Yeah, I kind of got filled in on the later half on the committee meeting. It sounds like there's a very robust discussion, a lot that happened there. I don't get how the other bidder was $100 different from Sutner. That seems so weird to me.
That's why I have people with me when I open up the envelopes, because that's how they came out. My hunch, because I've had some intel, I think the going rate on Okachi for this similar thing has been $3,500 a boat. So if you get, that gets you to $7,000, and I think the other one wanted to throw a little extra money on top of it, so that's why he put $7,100.
I think that's what he said, too.
Yeah, he did say it in
yeah.
the meeting. So I think that's how they came to it, so they're.
Yeah, well, and
they're
I'm
almost-
happy it went out, you know, that we did it this way. That's great, you know, it's forward thinking. I'm happy we did it. I wish we would have had Tynus involved in it. I don't quite understand, I mean, you know, where if there was opportunities to still get them in on the bid, or by that point, had you already opened envelopes?
Correct.
So,
We have a specific, with quotes and bids, we have a specific time you have to be in by. They called us 2 days later, and I just can't do that.
yeah, and so I hope in the future we can get more than 2 companies bidding on this. I mean,
why
it's
I
not
have
the you know, it's not the biggest, but it's something where you'd think that with the opportunities we have in the area, the commercial operations we're seeing take place, that there'd be other ones who'd be interested.
It'll also be interesting as we go through the design of the boat launch. There might be other opportunities for more of this too, so.
Yeah, but I'm great to see the Sutners coming back, so he's a great community partner.
Alderman Kavieski.
I think to Chaz's question, it's notable that Krista Tynus was there representing Tynus, and I think there were some issues that they were dealing with that prevented them from a timely submission. And to the best of my knowledge, there was no request for extension based on those circumstances. I do like the statement that you made that there could be additional slips for discussion, either as a result of the launch reconfiguration, or maybe that eastern transient boat slip over by the community center. Maybe, again, I understand, I was part of that whole discussion associated with blocking the view or inhibiting a clear view of the lake with the pergola for all that. But there is interest, and if we can encourage that, not only from a revenue standpoint, but from a utilization of our natural resources in a responsible way, I think that's a good thing.
Motion to approve the Buddy's docking lease as presented.
Second, Altman Cloth?
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. On to consideration of potential approval of First Amendment to Tax Increment Agreement, TID 7, Olympia Fields.
So this is a situation that we've been talking about for a long, long time. We finally have put it together. We've known for a long time that we have to amend the TID agreement to take care of some loose ends. And so tonight you have before you, and obviously we apologize for the fact that this is before you tonight, but it's not something that's unexpected, and it's not something that is controversial at all. We've talked about for a long time as it relates to this amendment is putting into place some of the loose ends that were not, that were still hanging out there when we did the original agreement. I'll hit you with the basic highlights of it and certainly take any questions. The first, as we talked about earlier tonight, the amendment allows the city, and this is a new thing, to expand the TID boundaries at our leisure so that we can deal with opportunities that may come to us. Second thing, you'll recall that under the old agreement, we were obliged to do special assessments for all the Regent Road properties. This eliminates that, and the developer has recognized, that that was a good thing. Maybe not, but they are gonna go along with it. Third, we had a debt schedule that was not contemplating or did not include grant funds that we've gotten. So we included that into a new schedule that $250,000 reduces the timeframe as it relates to prepaying the city infrastructure costs. And it confirms that we have paid all the city infrastructure costs. The design standards you've already seen and approved again, because those changed over time, so that's a done deal. The original configuration did not include the 8-acre theater site that we, acquired and we sold off. And so that takes care and checks that mark off. When we did the deal that we allowed Cenex come in, we were well aware and cognizant of the fact that they wanted to excise that from the increment guarantees, which the developer is still responsible for, but that just takes care of checking that mark off, which we've already talked about and we've agreed to. And we've all agreed, at least staff has, that the pond restoration that was supposed to be done earlier will be done this year. The final thing is, we didn't know how all of the impact fee and rec credits would break out, because we were in the, early on, didn't know exactly how that was gonna work out. We have a new Exhibit I, and that's the reason for the delay, because our staff finally got that squared away today, is it's all accounted for and it's squared away. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from council? I'd like to entertain a motion.
Actually, I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
I understand this is mainly housekeeping, and the developer has acted and performed as they outlined and established a good level of trust between them and the city as a result. But man, to get this today is just,
Okay, can I explain why?
yeah, have at it.
I'll be glad to explain why. They want to close with Landmark by Friday. I have already explained to you that Landmark has a certain lawyer that wants this done right now. We are confident that from a staff perspective, and I do understand, I understand 100%, but this is only because of that. And we had to jump through hoops between, I first found out that they had to get this done last Friday. And over the weekend, the
Called me.
staff put it together.
You called me.
I called you. I said, geez. But you're right. We got to trust with them.
Did take some time, reviewed it, and the only reason I mention that is because, eyes are definitely on this, and those kind of things draw attention. I want to make sure that the community understands and knows that there's nothing significantly new that would make me feel uncomfortable about voting in favor of this. I will be voting in favor of this, and I think it was notable to the community how that timeline and why that timeline was driven, and that is not at the request of the developer, but in short order, just to make sure that we're clean moving forward based on the requirements of a new tenant. With that, I
Like to
think you
entertain
asked.
a motion.
So move, Kavieski.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas. Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye. Under our next item, it's my honor to bring forth to the council an appointment to replace David Stoizer on the Paps Farms Joint Sewer Stormwater District. I'd like to appoint Jason Herzog, our new Department Director of Public Works, and I present him to you to ask questions.
Raise your right hand.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So move, Kavieski.
Second, Ellis.
Call roll, please. Thanks for coming up, Jason.
Alderman Spiegelberg. Alderman Mulder.
Congratulations. Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Sounds great. Mark, do we have any staff reports?
You know, just one really quick one. I want to thank Sullivan Murray and her team for the monitors and the new mics that we have in front of us tonight. Just sitting in the room, you can tell a big difference in the sound quality here, and now people don't have to share monitors. And just so everybody knows, you got to reach out and hit where it says push if you want to mute it. So.
But you have to hold it down.
Yeah, but I just want to say thanks to her and her team for getting this done. I think it's a big improvement for the council chambers.
I like the screens, but holding this,
That's only if you want to mute.
I
And-
know.
And that doesn't happen often with you.
You're fired.
my alderman comments are going to go really long.
This is a pretty short
I'd
meeting.
like to entertain any comments from the Alderman Rozak.
Yeah, I actually do have two. And two things that I prepared before tonight. I think it's important as aldermen that we follow up on items that we've decided. And not just, just to kind of say, hey, this has happened, or, what's the effect of it, but for the community to understand that the decisions we make also affect our families. So 2 weeks ago, I was stuck at work without a car. My wife had all the fire alarms going off in the house with all 4 kids there. She tried to check on the alarms, but couldn't figure out what was going on, called me, and I said, well, call 911. Get out of the house. This is the only time that we've ever had to call 911 as long as I've been with her. We've had kids, the whole 9 yards. And since the dispatch debate a few years ago, we haven't really had any really good significant updates on our move to WCC. My wife told me after the call was picked up immediately, the dispatcher was professional and nice. She gave my wife instructions and stayed on the phone until fire, EMS, and police arrived. There was no transfer, there were no delays, no drop calls. A fire truck, an ambulance, and 2 police squads arrived simultaneously and seamlessly to our home. Unfortunately, it was probably because we weren't replacing batteries and I had one of my alarms fail. So ultimately, it's my fault. But it was one call and a full response. My wife and I were delighted with not only the seamlessness of the call and the response, but also that we're truly blessed to have such great public services and emergency services that are reliable and unified here in the city. And I only bring this up because it's important for, again, when we make decisions, there's not ulterior motives, there's not nefarious reasons, because those decisions we make, we live with. And it was the first time really, other than maybe the garbage pickup thing I decided years ago, of a decision I made that specifically I had to live with. We did make decisions on buildings and other things that maybe don't really personally affect us. This did, and I can report between at least me and my family that it was a good decision. The other one is we had a recent debate that was large with regard to the library funding. I'm saddened to report that I think our debate has fallen on deaf ears. The next library board meeting is considering dropping fines for overdue children's books. Now, I don't know what the revenue source is or how huge it is for those fines, but depending upon what it is, it's another burden the regular taxpayers have to pick up. I'm going to try to make that meeting and ask those questions at the board meeting itself, but given the most recent debate in trying to raise revenues, I think this is an odd move. Additionally, I'm not sure how many people reviewed the library's year-end budget summary, but I did, and I think it's interesting to note, despite the outcry and gnashing of teeth regarding the reductions in last year's budget, in 2021, the library ended with a $21,000 surplus. This year, 2022, there'll be a $32,000 surplus. Out of that surplus money this year, that unspent budgeted taxpayer funds in 2022, nearly $17,000 was for personnel. Now, I recall during the debate that we were told that we cannot reduce personnel without serious service consequences. So I implore our library board and our library director to tell us what's really going on with the personnel. If you can cut 17,000 out that easily and have a surplus, why was that not discussed and debated on the floor? So I think it's, again, something we should be following up with all these departments, with all these budgets, and checking what's going on, because that's a big number. We fought and argued between 35,000 and 25,000, and yet there's a $32,000 surplus this year. Now, that goes back into the general budget, it goes back into general fund, but I think it was important and something that we should have probably been told during that debate. That 35 grand, we have surplus every year about that much anyway. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for, and I will remember to use the mute when appropriate.
Well, the first thing I thought about in your first story, which thank you for sharing that, is one call, that's all?
You know, yeah.
One call, that's all.
Alderman Kavieski, save me.
I got a couple things. So last meeting, you prompted me about the fentanyl awareness. There was a county press release put out this past week providing additional information. Western Lakes Fire District has banners in front of stations. The city has a banner in rotation. City of Pewaukee, City of Muskego, City of West Allis, City of Waukesha. It is making a difference in regards to awareness. With awareness comes education, with education comes action. And I just was watching on the news today about a large fentanyl bust that occurred in Arizona, and it was enough to kill every person in that state 7 times over, that one bust. So, and some people think that's a great thing that we're apprehending all of this. It is a sign of a broken border and the amount coming across that border. And in order for this to really be impactful, that needs to be addressed. That's not our policy, that's a federal policy. But I appreciate, again, all of the municipalities getting on board to create the awareness. Couple other things. There is, in regards to the library, I participated in that discussion. As part of that discussion, we also dealt with the needs analysis associated with that. During that, we had a community resident come up and say, look, you know, if you get engaged with the library to do some fundraising, I'll help support that. And we have been working with the library, with the Friends of the Library, and there's some information starting to come out now via social media, so I thought it was an okay time to just give her a little plug. The Bookbinders Ball is going to be the first inaugural event to help start to raise money for the capital needs associated with library improvements, not operations, not labor, not books, but the physical space. I think anybody who has been in there has seen that it could use an update, potentially expansion, depending upon what the needs analysis. That needs analysis would be paid for out of the vision fund that would be segregated out of city expense. It's not going on to the taxpayer. We all agree to that, and I'm excited to be a part of those efforts to move that forward. That is really where those efforts should lie. It shouldn't lie heavier on the taxpayer. It should be a good public-private partnership, and I think there's been a lot of effort to make that happen. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate a continued look at the operational side of things as that moves forward. 2 more things, and I apologize.
How many minutes?
There's time stands still when I start, so we got that going for us. Just a reminder, March 9th, there is a public education forum over at the Public Safety Building that I appreciate Lori's help in putting together staff time, Mark, Mayor, and the Oconomowoc Area School District is also participating in that session. Separately, they are a separate body, they're a separate taxing authority, but we're taking the opportunity to take both organizations into one meeting so the community understands how we get our revenue. There's property taxes, there's TIF, there's impact fees, there's all kinds of stuff that make up the revenue associated with both bodies, and understanding that helps to understand what services are delivered and how. So if you can, please make that on March 9th. There are two more things that are tied together. The last major event for the fundraising efforts for the K-9 unit for Oconomowoc Police Department is on March 16th at Coco's. The theme is the Perfect Partnership. Get it? Perfect. It's going to be great. The community engagement on those fundraising efforts, and Alderman Altman-Cloth has been involved in orchestrating some of those events and efforts. Thank you so much. Captain Tim, Chief, Alyssa, it's been really neat to be a part of, where you have communities that don't embrace public safety. Comparatively to Oconomowoc, it's a great place to live, and I hope it's a great place to serve. So it's going to be neat to have that K-9 unit part of the community and making us safer. I appreciate the mayor starting out with a moment of silence. It was Officer Peter Jerving who was killed in the line of duty. So it goes to show that it is an incredible duty that you provide. There is no other outside of the military that you serve when you put on that uniform that it puts a target on your back. That's it.
You sure?
Yep.
Just giving you a hard time. Alderman Ellis,
Yes, I just
and
wanted,
thank you for the updates.
I just wanted an update on the bike tunnel, what's going on with that.
You want, we can discuss that later. It's not an agenda item,
I understand.
but it's all moving forward in a positive direction. Be happy to send out, or we can do it on a Friday email.
Okay, thank you.
Doctor, Alderman Altman-Cloth? Doctor? Almost called you doctor.
That's right. I mean, I do have 4 kids, so I think somewhere along the line I earned that
And a
degree.
pet.
Going on what Lou said about the officer in Milwaukee, a little piece of information that kind of came out today that I heard on my way here that just really struck me how amazing our officers are, is the footage of what happened has come out. And after he was shot, he did CPR on the young man who shot him. You know, so while one of our congresswomen is at the State of the Union address tonight bashing our officers, we lost one in Milwaukee, and one that tried to save the man who shot him. And I hope every media site in, Milwaukee and nationally lets that known, but sadly, I don't have faith that they will. And I want people to know how incredible that officer was.
Any further comments from the Alderman Council? With no further addition from the mayor, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move, Kavieski.
A second? Second, Douglas. All in favor?
Aye.
Have a great evening, everybody, and thank you all for coming.